Why do I keep on getting it right? Why do I keep on predicting big Saturdays and then we keep on getting big Saturdays? Well, there's a couple of reasons. We got ourselves a really damn good season this year. And two, no such thing as a bad college football Saturday. Just isn't. That's all there is to it. But anyway, let's get right down to brass tacks. Arkansas, Bama. We'll start with that. Arkansas is weird. They look good in games, right? And then they don't win them. Happened with LSU. Happened this week with Bama. Bama looked like a bunch of clowns and fools, and Arkansas was fighting back. I don't think Bama scored in the second half. The Hogs claw, and still can't win. I don't know what it is. And I think, me personally, I wouldn't fire, what's his name? The guy at Arkansas, sorry, I'm a little tired. Sam Pittman, right? I think Arkansas is going to move on him, and here's why. Two notable alumni from the University of Arkansas. Jerry Jones and the Waltons. That is billions and billions of dollars in NIL that they could utilize and become a contender tomorrow. And I don't know if Sam Pittman, I don't know if they're gonna have the patience with Sam Pittman. I would run to a wall for that guy, but that's just me. But Bama wins 24-21. And they were favored by a lot, so say what you will. What else did we have happen? Georgia Vanderbilt. I didn't talk about this last week because it was Georgia versus Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt looked competitive for the whole first half. But what's that saying? Georgia hasn't looked competitive in any first half all season. So the real story from this game is Brock Bowers, maybe the best player in college football, breaks his ankle, out for the season. And Vanderbilt still lost. It was a 37-20 loss. But the big story is, and we'll get to this later in the week about Georgia, what are they going to do? Their entire identity was Brock Bowers. So we'll see. But just noteworthy one to talk about real quick. Kansas, Oklahoma State. My boy Big E, he's watching right now, and he's pissed. Because he and I were throwing jabs at each other because I'm a Mike Gundy guy. And as I said many times, and Oklahoma State, I don't believe was favored, even though they were home, and they win. It was 39-32. So whatever, go Pokes. But even though that, the horns down, go Pokes. What else? Now I'll get into the better games. UCLA, Oregon State. That game had a lot of Pac-12 implications on it because I think they both had a loss, right? I know UCLA lost to Utah, and I think Oregon State slipped up to Washington State. So this was a big game because one guy they were both ranked, and one team was going to have to lose. That's how this sport works. Someone's got to lose. And the loser was probably going to be out of the run for the Pac-12, maybe a college football playoff spot. And I thought UCLA was going to have it, even though I've been big on Oregon State just because they're part of the Tupac, and it would be real cool to see the Tupac give a middle finger to the rest of the Pac-12. Let's go into greener pastures. And hey, Oregon State's still alive. They have one loss, but they beat UCLA, so they're still alive now. The Pac-12's a gauntlet this year, so we'll see. I think there's a different Pac-12 team that's the cream of the crop. You guys know who I'm going to talk about. We'll get to that game later. But yeah, Oregon State wins 36-24. What else do we want to talk about? Florida, South Carolina. It's Cocktober, That's when the Cocks come out. And Billy Napier, here's a little noteworthy stat. He is terrible on the road thus far in his career at Florida. So naturally, Florida wins 41-39. This was a bloodbath of a game in all the worst ways. Florida was down like 10 with like 9 minutes left. It takes over the game. You know why? Because South Carolina's quarterback is Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler, not good at football. If you put Spencer Rattler on Tulane, Memphis, he would look like a god amongst men. But you put him on Oklahoma, that's not going to happen. Well, he was under Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley is a quarterback whisperer. We're going to get to Lincoln Riley, but he was a quarterback whisperer. Spencer Rattler didn't have the skills, didn't have the mentality, and was a generally mean guy. He wasn't going to make it. Goes to South Carolina. Everyone thinks it's going to be the big deal. And he shows one game looking good and then 4 games looking terrible. I was shocked by this result. And, old Rossi down in Florida, he's the one that wants to better himself. What, do you think you're better than me? Huh? You think you're better than me? Tooch? No, not Tooch. I'll talk about Tooch, but Rossi, huh? Think you're better than me? Get out of here. If Florida wins, Florida's got 2 losses. They control a good portion of their own destiny. And again, we'll talk about that later in the week. But Florida, with the inclusion of Georgia having their injury, and they beat Tennessee, the East is wide open in the SEC. So we'll see. I'm kind of getting excited, because, for so long it was just Bama, Georgia, Bama, Georgia, Bama, Georgia. There's an easy path that it's LSU, Florida. Easy path, which is pretty cool because I'm tired of Bama, Georgia. Because I just am, if you're going to root for a team that wears predominantly a shade of red and white, who cares about the Crimson Tide? Who cares about the Bulldogs? What about the Owls? The Owls got smoked against North Texas. I'm not even going to mention the score, but whatever. Let's keep rolling. We got USC, Notre Dame. What did I predict? Notre Dame wins big. What happens? Notre Dame wins big. Caleb Williams, Heisman winning quarterback, coached by Lincoln Riley. Sacked 6 times, throws 3 interceptions plus a fumble. He looks like Spencer Rattler, because Spencer Rattler looks terrible when he plays good competition. He looked like that. And that game was very apparent. Lincoln Riley has a fundamental issue in his coaching strategy. I think if he hires a decent defensive coordinator, it'll work itself out. USC recruits itself. You're in Hollywood. You got all the money in the world. So people think Lincoln Riley's going to the NFL. He's not going to go to the NFL. The board is just going to make USC force him to hire a defensive coordinator, and then you'll see him. But they looked horrendous because the Irish look so dominant. I'm telling you, I know a lot of Irish guys. I know a lot of people big in Notre Dame. I keep on hearing it, that this is the best roster Notre Dame's had since 2012. It's a shame they lost to Louisville. You understand why they lost to Louisville, but because they're not in the conference and, this is a merit-based sport, they got 2 losses. They're not going to the national championship. But I think whatever bowl game they get against probably like Penn State, Florida State, Oregon, it's going to be the best bowl game. The B tier bowl games. Sorry to get on a tangent. You got the New Year's Six and the playoff and the national championship game. The B tier games, just underneath them. Those are the games that are the best bowl games. And I truly think whatever game Notre Dame's in, which is going to be up against an elite team that just could not squeak by, is going to be the best bowl game of the year. And it's going to be awesome. So mark that down, put money down on it. I don't care. But Notre Dame looked incredible. Their defense, their offense, everything. The offense didn't need to operate that much because the defense just kept on getting the ball to the 1-yard line. Plus a nice little punt return touchdown too. Or was it kickoff? I don't know. But Notre Dame looks good. And, they have those blemishes, and you can't. That's why we play these games. You're going to get blemished. You got to be elite. They weren't elite. They lost to Louisville. So, whatever. But they look like a fantastic football team. If Sam Hartman had another year of eligibility, I would have had him as my national champion. Now, I predicted them to win the national championship this year, so what do I know? More than you. But finally, we get to the game we all been wanting to talk about. Washington versus Oregon. That game is what college football's about. Two schools, regional rivalry that hate each other. That everything is on the line in this game. You cannot fuck up. If you fuck up, you will be exposed. And what happens? I don't even want to say Oregon fucked up. They were in it till the very last second. It was just wide right. But fantastic game. I thought it was going to be higher scoring. I told you I thought it was going to be 52 to 51. But points were at a premium. And it was 36-33. But points were at a premium. And both the defenses completely showed up. Oregon had a goal line stand against Washington. Washington had a goal line stand against Oregon. But, I mean, the biggest, the game changer, in my opinion, Oregon had 2 possessions in the final minute and a half of the first half. How many points did they get off those possessions? 0. That's the game right there. And I remember watching it with my dad. We were talking, and I was like, Dad, you could point to that. It was at halftime. My dad point to those 2 possessions. They are going to come back and haunt them. And it did. But I'm not going to question going forward on 4th. I'll always root for going forward on 4th. 21, Arkansas Ole Miss, which is always a fun game to watch. Arkansas comes down, scores a touchdown with a chance to tie it as regulation ended. They scored the touchdown when 0's on the clock. The pit boss, Sam Pittman, elects to go for 2. They don't get it. Ole Miss wins in regulation. It was a fucking awesome play. Going for 2 is simply going for it on 4th down. It's the same thing. So I'm never going to question Dan Lanning at Oregon going for it on 4th with no time left to run out the half. And the reason I'm not going to question it is because I predicted Washington to win, and they won. And I kind of know how the College Football Playoff Committee looks at these stuff. I think Washington has stamped their way into the playoff. As long as they take care of business, they can afford a loss. Why do I say this? I think also 21. Oregon, funny enough, we're talking about them, goes into Ohio State and schools them. And a couple weeks later, they lose to Stanford. But in the first ranking of the College Football Playoff, Oregon was in the conversation. Because even though they had a really ugly loss against Stanford, it didn't matter because they had such an impressive win going into the shoe. And I think that's the case. I think whenever the playoff rankings come out, which I think is stupid when you put out the fucking rankings like 5 weeks before the playoffs and you still got games to play, but ESPN is a bunch of cowards and losers, so they're going to do that. But I think Washington has stamped their way into the playoff. I think they are the one team you can guarantee is going into the playoff, and it's because of that performance. They were elite when they needed to. Michael Penix did not look good in the third quarter. He looked great in the first half. Third quarter looked not that great. A lot of the fourth quarter didn't look that great. But then he puts together that drive. And, you know what's funny? They get the ball with like 2 minutes left. And I go, Dad, this is probably the last possession of the game. And he goes, oh, we don't know. And then 2 plays into the end zone. And I go, Dad, I think Oregon just won this game. Because Washington was a lot slower on offense than Oregon. Oregon was able to get down to the field. The problem was when they got down to the field, they couldn't score points. And you know what ended up happening? They got down the field. They just couldn't score points. So, and that was what it was. I think Washington used too little time on that last possession, but it didn't matter because wide right. Purple rain ensues at Husky Stadium, and it's just, I was screaming, I was punching. That's college football right there. And so now we've seen what I think are the 3 biggest games: Ohio State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Texas, and Washington, Oregon. I think those are, I remember thinking at the beginning of the season, those are going to be the 3 biggest games. We've seen them. We still got huge games coming up, and they are only emphasized by the results of the previous games. I'm not previewing tonight. I got Don't worry about me. I got too much shit going on. But we'll talk about it. We'll do some previews later. But anyway, salud. Get out of my house. I want to go to sleep. Get out. Bye-bye. See you later. Scram.